Welcome to another episode of On the Air with Tim and Ken. Ken, great to see you.
Great to see you.
Well, we got a lot going on this week. We had a lot of fun. We texted a few times during the Masters. And before we get into the Masters, we got to do the disclaimer real quick. So, folks, you saw our Masters picks. Clearly, we don't go by what we say tonight. Just enjoy it. We couldn't pick the winner of the Masters. I think everybody else in America did, but I don't think you did either, Ken. I think you had Ludvig.
No, if you picked Ludwig, you lost. So
Yeah. All right. We got a lot on for tonight. It should be fun. So sit back and enjoy. We're going to get into the Masters. We're going to talk about that, the recap, and the Masters by the numbers. Then we're going to get into the WNBA draft and that whole league and what's going on there, and then the NFL draft. And then we'll have a few previews for things coming on. Future episodes. We've had a lot of feedback. Some of it good, some of it we'll take under advisement, but we appreciate all of it. So, Ken, you had a little bit of time over the weekend, like myself. You watched the Masters. What were some of your takeaways?
I mean, the story all week was Rory, and was he going to get the major that eluded him? He came in with playing well. He hadn't won a major since 2014. A lot of pressure on him. He's the face of the PGA Tour. He has probably turned down hundreds of millions of dollars to go to the Live Tour, to be the face of the PGA Tour. A lot of pressure on him. He played real well for 14 holes on day one, and then
Yep.
kind of did what Rory does at the Masters. He gave it back. And I think after day one, I kind of thought Rory was like, Phil at the US Open, Greg Norman at the Masters. It was always going to be the title that eluded him. But just a really great weekend. A lot of drama. You couldn't have
Yeah.
made it up. Nobody would believe it.
Yeah.
And just a great win. I was
Yeah.
really happy to see him, and we'll talk a little bit about the details, but really happy to see him pull it out. Played really well.
Yeah. He could have lost it on Thursday. He had a great round and he imploded at the end, but he composed himself and got back in the tournament in a Rory type way. You did predict one thing that I think was spot on. There'd be a lot of birdies out there, and there was some phenomenal golf, and that's a tribute to the talent and the greens crew and the weather cooperated somewhat. Um, Pin placements, I think anywhere on that course. I don't think there's an easy one, but I think the Rory's clearly the story. The golf course was phenomenal. The fans were phenomenal. The coverage was phenomenal. You couldn't have written that script any better. And like over four, I think what makes part of that unique is, especially for me up here in New England, it's kind of the opening of spring with golf and so forth. And down south, you play golf almost year round, if not year round. But up here, when you hear the Masters, it's golf time, and you get really pumped about that. But it's a 4-day tournament. You're not going to win it on days 1, 2, 3. You can only lose it, and so it's a grind out there. There's a lot of things going on, and then every day the course is different, and you play it at different times of the day, compared to your opponents. So the conditions can change too. So there's a lot of dynamics out there, and even if you're not a real big golf fan, I know the viewership around the 7 o'clock hour. We'll get into that later on. Was really off the chart. So, clearly Rory's a incredible personality. Has worked so hard, like you said, over so many years to get this Grand Slam. Well deserved. You couldn't have written that script much better. So I think we're very fortunate to have been able to witness that.
Yeah, I mean, he's taken over for Tiger. Tiger's at the end of his career, which is kind of hard for us to say since we've seen him play since the
Yeah.
beginning of his career, but he's kind of taken over for Tiger as the face of the tour. Incredible game. And you really saw him step up, and every time you thought he was, going to give the tournament away, I remember Bill Parcells used to say he would put his big boy pants on, and then I think you saw Rory put his big boy pants on time after time. Maybe they fell down, but he
Right.
pulled them
Right.
right back up, and just kept on hitting, great shots. Um, he he just made some poor shots. The shot at 13, that was obviously you thought he was in the driver's seat. It was going to be a walk in. He made it interesting, but the drama. Justin Rose, what an incredible comeback! What a
Oh,
credible
phenomenal.
player.
Yeah.
He was leading for 2 rounds, and then he kind of fell. You didn't see him, and then all of a sudden Sunday afternoon, back nine, as they say, that's where the tournament begins. And here comes Justin Rose to fight him tooth and nail to the end, and it was just an incredible tournament,
Yeah.
drama wise.
Yeah. The
Some great
last
shots. There
few
were
hours, you didn't see Justin Rose coming up from the behind there, and you didn't. At least I didn't think he was going to be, right there at the end. And if you asked me at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I didn't see it, but by 5 o'clock in the afternoon, it was incredibly different, incredibly riveting. One thing about this sport and this tournament is it's an individual sport. There's no timeouts. There's no substitutions. You don't go to your teammate. You don't go to a coach. You call your own. You call penalties on yourself. There's a lot to it that's different than other sports. I mean, there are other individual sports that are similar, but they don't have all the characteristics of this because like in tennis and so forth, you're on the same type of court all the time. The conditions can change, the weather, but the course is part of the story here too. And every year they deliver a magnificent venue for the golfers and the fans and for the whole sport.
I mean, I think the biggest thing about golf is you're not necessarily seeing your opponent.
Good point.
For the first half of the tournament on Sunday, it's Rory and Bryson. They're looking at each other, they're playing against each other. It's match play. Bryson, hits it in the water on 11. Rory's in control. Then all of a sudden, Justin out of nowhere makes a few birdies, and you find out by looking at the scoreboard, your opponent's not necessarily in front of you, and it's a unique
Because you're
it's the
paying,
only
you're
sport
playing
I can think
yourself,
of
right?
where right where your opponent's not right in front of you or on the same feet,
Yeah,
so that you can see what your opponent's doing, and that's why the galleries are. You hear the fans react, and every time and they have the manual scoreboards. Every time they
yeah,
would post a score, a birdie, or the crowd would go crazy, and just a unique event. It lived up to the hype. I think for the sport, it got the right ending.
yeah.
Rory's been a great ambassador. I think in many ways he may have saved the PGA Tour by not going to live and taking probably the hundreds of millions he was offered. Because Scotty's a great player, but I'm not sure that he's ready to be the face. I mean, Tiger's at the end of his career, and
Sure. Yep. No, he's the
um,
he's the heir apparent. He's there. He rose to the occasion. All the weight was on
and,
his
and
shoulders.
so it was just a very, I watched a lot of it all the way to the end, and you couldn't take your eyes off the TV. You didn't know what was going to happen
Right.
next. So
Interesting. You mentioned the live golfers. I got some numbers here on live, and as folks know, live plays a three round tournament, and this is 4 rounds in the PGA, and for whatever this is worth, it might be worth nothing, but factually, the final round, there's 50 players in the final round. Maybe I'm off by a couple, but the final round average on Sunday was 70 by the players. Though there were 7 live golfers that made the cut, 7 out of 12 that started. That 7 made the cut, and their final round average was 71.85. Does it mean anything? I don't know, but it's something, and they were 71.85, and the field was 70. So
it would be interesting to know, right? Like golfers are so routine oriented, and, and not that they're great athletes, and not that they're physically tired from playing the next 18
no,
holes,
no,
but it's outside their rhythm. And did Bryson shot 75 on Sunday.
it's like you said, it's
Incredible
outside
talent.
their rhythm,
Incredible
outside their
talent.
routine.
Yeah, and on that kind of course where if you're a lot of courses, it may not matter if there's not water there. You bomb it away and go find it. But on that course where there's so much water in play and the penalties are so steep, and he did find the water at 11, that kind of started his tumble on the back nine. You wonder whether that matters, and
Hmm.
we'll never know. But it's it's
it's
an interesting topic to discuss. So think
yeah,
about.
it's just it could be out there for nothing, and maybe they did they prepare differently for this tournament? I don't know. Did the live golfers do it? I don't know, but well, I don't know, but. Those are the numbers, but I just speaking of numbers, I don't want to bore everybody, but I just want to share a few numbers on the viewership because I watch, so I'm probably counting on this number. So in the final round of the Masters on Sunday afternoon, there were 12.7 million viewers. It peaked around 19.5 million around that 7 o'clock hour when Roy was going to win it in sudden death, and then just to put that in comparison, it's hard to compare numbers or what numbers really mean. But when I look at the 2025 Super Bowl numbers, you got 127 million viewers. Now I'm dating myself here, obviously, but the Apollo 11 moon landing back in 1969, 650 million viewers worldwide. I didn't know there was that many TVs available back then, but and then compare it to last year's World Series, 16.8 million. So again, they averaged 12.5 million on Augusta on Sunday, and then the big one out there is the World Cup Soccer worldwide event. Not the biggest event in the U.S., I would fair to say, but certainly growing. And the final match in 2022, it says 1.5 billion. Now, I don't know if these numbers are accurate, but it's what I was able to find through the internet and some other sources. So it just puts it
The
out
sale
there.
of the Boston Celtics are 6.2 billion, just numbers you can't even fathom.
Right, right. But it's all interesting to me for some crazy reason. But we had a great time watching the Masters, and there's always a lot of side stories. Some you hear about. We talked, I don't know if we talked about John Daly at all, but I think you found something out about John Daly. He also was at the Masters.
And John Daly, if you know who he is, he's in his late 50s. He is was first known for being the real big long hitter. He caught fire in 1991. He joins the PGA Tour. He's the ninth alternate to get into the PGA Championship. So the chances of him even playing in the tournament are really slim. Nick Price, who's I think the number one player in the world at the time, his wife goes into labor with his first child. He pulls out. John Daly comes in as the ninth alternate and wins the PGA Championship, the major. And that's where like the legend of John Daly is. He's like the big long hitter. He's won at St. Andrews. He's the guy you want to go and have a beer with. He always seems to be having a beer. And he has an endorsement contract with Hooters, the bar. And he spends his week at Augusta at the Hooters down the street from Augusta selling merchandise and stuff. And apparently in 2024, grossed $780,000 of revenue selling hats and golf balls and whatever else he can. And I mean,
What an entrepreneur! What a interesting guy all around. He's just people root for him. Like you said, he's always been the underdog. He came in with that big swing, and just came onto the scene, and he just connected with people. And if I'm ever so fortunate to get down to Augusta, and I'm going to make sure that he's on my radar that week, and go over and also I'll support his merchandise cause.
it's those side stories, and I knew you have a side story about some real estate down there.
I do. Before we move on and we kick off the Masters until probably months down the road again. Uh, money. We've talked a lot about money and viewership and things like that, but money can't buy everything. Even from the folks at Augusta National, we have a young lady, Elizabeth Hacker, about 92 years old. She's been living down there and in the same house since the 1950s, and she's just outside one of the entrance gates. I've never been there, so I don't know the layout. But she's been approached time and again to sell her house. They probably would tear it down, put it in a parking lot or something like that. Speculation is it's assessed at $300,000. Speculation is she's been offered well over $1 million for it. She's turned it down. Every year there's a human interest story there. She just comments, I enjoy it here. I enjoy it here, so why move? There is a side story. At one point, her and her family had another house down there. in that area, and they did sell for 1.2. So so that you don't hear too much about that, but good for them. She made some money. Apparently, her family loves her down there. She's happy, and being happy is what it's
Enjoying her
all.
house. Yeah, she should enjoy her house,
Exactly.
and
That's what it's there for.
it's special to her, special to the family.
So if I
It,
get
you
down
think
there,
I think it's great. I think it's great that, she's just, nah, I don't need the money.
I'd like to say
So
hello to her if I ever so fortunate to get down there on my way to see John Daly, and then get to a practice run on Tuesday and Wednesday and see the course. And
maybe we can crash there.
yeah,
We'll tell her that the income's not taxable, right?
that's a great point, right? Right. Yeah, that's good. We got to move on. We've been on this for a while because we enjoy it so much. But let's move on to the WNBA. Now, you watch a lot more women's basketball than I do. Can you give a little bit of color to what you've seen over the last few years as far as the collegiate game and how it transitions into the WNBA, which has been around for a while now, but it's growing.
It's really becoming a fascinating time in women's sports. I am a big follower of the women's basketball, college basketball. Um, I mean, I watch a lot of UConn, but there's so much talent out there. I've watched a lot. There are a lot of other games. The talent in women's college basketball right now is at an all-time high. I don't necessarily follow the WNBA from a game perspective, but I am interested in the business side of it. The last 2 years in the college world, you had Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, two big names in 2024 graduate, go to play in the WNBA this year. It's Paige Beckers from UConn. And then there's a young lady, Juju Watkins at USC, who is a couple years away. She just tore a knee. Just an incredible player. So they've got some big name players who have connected to the fans, social media. I think, Angel Reese has like 4 million Instagram followers or 4.8 million Instagram followers. Um, Also during this time, there is been a provision in college sports where college athletes can be paid for what they call it NIL, name, image, and likeness.
Hmm.
So if you're a sponsor or you're a spokesperson, so a lot of the players that you hear about it in, all the men's basketball and football and the women's college basketball, they're making some really good money. The WNBA has struggled financially, but they're with this new influx of talent and the social media stuff, they're really starting to come on the map.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the challenges I think they face is their season time.
Yes.
Their season's going to start in the middle of May and it goes through like the middle of September to October. So there is a lot of competition in that time frame. But they've just signed a new long-term media deal, which is going to enhance their revenue. They've got a lot of great young players. I think it's a league that's really worth keeping an eye on. They just added their 13th team.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be a league to really, keep your eye on. But as we've talked about sports and sports business, how much money can it generate and how much is the realistic? I think you had some numbers on what like the rookies were making.
Yeah, these women, the first year rookies are about $78,000. So, like Ken alluded, they're making their money with the endorsements, and I'm thrilled to see that, and they're starting that back with their collegiate career because of the NIL now, name, image, and likeness. So thank goodness for that. Otherwise, I'm not sure this league would have had a lot of staying power. They get notoriety at the college ranks, and it morphs right into their professional career. So I think it's wonderful. And like you alluded, there is some expansion. I think there's going to be another two teams in 2 years. Uh, you want to comment on the travel and money?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about sports and that there's never enough money in sports because how much everybody wants and how costly things are. And one of the challenges that the WNBA has faced, and as their revenue has developed, they're slowly adjusting. But it's pretty much prior to 2024, except for the playoffs, the players are flying on commercial. So you could have been, if you were flying to, you know, Minnesota, you could have been on a plane with next to, some of the New York Liberty players
Right.
and who may have been going there for a game. So they've instituted and they're transitioning to a charter program, and it's really needed. I mean, the player safety, for their health and
Just
but
the rigors of travel.
it is a $25 million expense. So, that's real money. So it's not, I don't think that the WNBA doesn't want to do it. I mean, it is a real dollar amount to deal with, and hopefully with the new media deal and the increased popularity of Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese joining the league, and now Paige Becker is joining the league, that you'll have these increased revenues that will be able to support not only improve their compensation but their travel and their
Yeah.
benefits and things of that nature.
And like you said, the NBA's made a big investment here, and I hope it works because these ladies are really talented, and I want to see it continue. And like you said, the NBA has a big investment, and they probably haven't seen a turn of their money yet. So hopefully they'll, with this expansion, they're optimistic, and like you alluded to, the talent and the NIL. At least these women can come out and make a modest salary, very modest for their talent level, and continue on in their professional career. I just hope it catches some fire.
You had several of the top college players this year pass on the NBA WNBA draft, and some of the speculation was they could make more in college than they would as
Yeah.
rookies in the WNBA. So it's a
Yep.
story where it's there's a lot of stuff there. There's a lot of moving pieces. It's something we'll keep an eye on
Yeah.
and bring you updates. Um,
Great.
but
No, we'll keep you updated. We think it's fascinating because it's growing, and it's going in the right direction, we think. Um,
absolutely going in the right direction.
all right, we got NFL draft. We don't have a lot of time left, but this year it's going to be over at Lambeau Field. So if you want to go to Lambeau Field, this is a great time to go off season for a meaningful purpose to go and have some fun and see the field and see the draft.
Yeah, I mean, the NFL draft has become one of the premier events. Prior to 2009, it was a Saturday, Sunday event. You had to be a real diehard NFL fan to find it and watch it. It was kind of painful. And they 2009 they put it on Thursday prime time. It used
Yep.
to always be in New York. In 2015, they started rotating cities. So it has really become one of and you'll see it all over the media. It's really become one of the NFL premier events.
Yeah, it's a fun event.
And
Fan experience, the whole thing, and it's obviously on, I think, ESPN, ABC, and some other networks. And it's like you said, it's Thursday, April 24th. It's 3 days. So if if you're looking for something to watch or do, that'd be a great time to do it. But I think we're running out of time here, and we're going to have to come back to the NFL draft, and we're going to have to talk in our next episode. We're probably going to have a little preview on the upcoming Kentucky Derby, because I just remember last year Mystic Dan was pretty good to me at 18-1. So I can't predict the future, but I can predict some fun anyway.
a great episode. Thanks everybody for giving us a few minutes of your time. We really do appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing you for the next episode.
Ken, thanks again. We have a lot of fun doing this. We like the feedback, good or bad, and we're just having some fun. So hopefully you enjoy along, and we'd like to hear from you. And thanks to our production team. Have a good night.
Thanks everybody. Good night.